Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Show Must Go On. I'm Casey Bell, your host, and today we have Tonya Todd. Let's get started. Thank you for joining another episode. Today's guest is Tonya Todd. She is an actress and author, podcast host, and so much more. Let's take a listen at our interview together. When was your earliest, if you can remember, your earliest memory where you said, I think acting might be something I would like to do?
Probably when I was a kid, when I didn't realize what went into it. You know, it just seemed fun. And I liked different voices and seeing people do superhero stuff. Like I liked superheroes even as a child. And so, you know, it would be fun to do something like that. And then years later, I did not think it was an option, but I was a little girl.
What were your, when you first came to the knowledge that, okay, this is actually something I can do, what were some of the steps you started to take to make this a profession?
Well, take acting classes. When you care about an art, you kind of need to focus on the craft part of it and learn it and respect it enough to learn the details of it. It's not just a matter of, well, you want to do it, that means you can do it. That's a start, but you need to learn how to do it well in order to respect that craft. And so I took classes, I started auditioning, I got headshots, and I started learning about not the business side of it, but the craft side of it, and meeting different people, you know, networking with people who were already involved with it so that I could ask them questions, because to be completely honest, I had no idea what I was doing to start.
With that said, when did you start realizing that there was a business side to it and you had to focus on that as well?
Probably when I realized how little money there was in it at the very beginning of it, when people kept asking me to work for free.
Oh.
It's like, wow, you know, I wasn't expecting that I was going to sign $1 million contract or anything, but I did expect to be paid for my service.
Right.
When it's a collaboration, you know, that's one thing. If you are working with someone who's trying to develop their own reel, say you're working with a director or a filmmaker, and they're at the beginning and they don't have the money to pay for everything, I am happy to work for free if it means that we're collaborating on a project and, you know, they're going to provide something for my reel. Because there is an exchange there. It's a trade, you know, we're offering each other something. But if somebody wants to just make something and you don't get anything out of that experience, then they're just asking you to work for free.
Right. What were some mistakes you fell into that you learned that you like to share?
Well, theater and film work, very different mediums. And, you know, until you work both of them, you don't realize just how different they are. Film is so much, you know, there's so much stillness in film as opposed to the grand stage. You know, you have to reach the person at the back of the room, and you can't do that if you're very small. And so your canvas is much tighter when you're working on film. And then the auditioning process is different too. You can talk with the people when you're auditioning for theater. You can have a conversation with them. Depending on what you're auditioning for in terms of commercial or television or film, you don't have the same amount of time to maybe develop a rapport with the person. I mean, for commercials, you're in and out of there. They have like 1,000 people they need to see. You do not have time to have a conversation. But for film, they'll probably take a little more time to have a conversation with you because They need to know, am I going to be able to handle this person on set for a month? You know, is this someone that I want to see every day for a month? So just learning when it's okay to be friendly and have a conversation, and when just shut up, do your job, get in, get out, and go away.
Cool. So during this time, of course, there are a lot of, so I guess you can say January and February of 2020, there were a lot of people in college, in theater, dance, music. And then the pandemic happened, and now some of them are panicking because in their mind, their dream is dead. And so, of course, everyone's favorite word this year was pivot. And so, do you have any advice for those out there who feel like there's no hope for them? I mean, were you able to pivot during this time? Were you able to continue
Definitely.
working? And what advice would you give people?
So I was set to star in a feature film last year, and I was set to star in a play performance of Caesar and Cleopatra. That play was supposed to debut on March 15th, the Ides of March.
Wow.
So I had been rehearsing for quite a while, and that day they cut it. They said, no, we did our rehearsal, our final dress rehearsal the day before, greenlit, everything's fine. The morning of March 15th, we're not opening. So after all of that, it was very devastating to have all of that hard work, you know, all this buildup, all this excitement, only to have it ripped away. And then the frustration of, I shouldn't even be this upset about this because people are out there dying. You know, there's a very serious thing going on right here. You feel the guilt of being upset about not being able to perform. But you can't always control your emotions. You can't always control things that make you sad. And so I dealt with it. I had to do the pivoting thing and just kind of translate that energy into something else. And eventually we ended up meeting together, just, you know, the small group of actors, we ended up meeting together and filming the production as, you know, still as a stage production. It wasn't a movie by any means, but we filmed it. And even though it was disappointing that we didn't get the live theater experience, the live audience, thousands of people were able to see it versus just the few dozens that would have seen it in a live performance, because it would have been small venues that we were doing. And we weren't doing a very long run. So ultimately, they recorded it and put it up on Facebook and YouTube, and it's had over 2,000 hits.
Wow. That's amazing.
And you said, what advice would I give people? I would say that creatives create. And if your usual medium isn't quite working for you, explore other mediums, because storytelling is all connected with writing and with filming and photography and acting. Learn the craft right now. Take this time to learn something about either your particular piece of the craft or other elements of it that will strengthen you when you can perform again.
Thank you for that. So you're not only an actress, but you're also a writer. Does those skills sometimes come in handy? Like when you're writing, does your acting skills come in handy? And when you're acting, does your writing skills come in handy? Do they?
Very much so. When creating characters that I'm writing, I think the acting side of it helps me tap into that person and tap into the essence of them. It helps me a lot, quite a bit, because let's say I'm trying to understand how people would interact with a certain type of person. I have used my actor side to embody that character and go out into the world and just pretend to be this. We're not even really pretending. I would just be this person in these situations to see how would people react. And I have learned so much by going outside of myself to do that. You can't always predict how people are going to respond. And you might think, oh, this is how that would play out. Oh no, it is not always exactly what you think. And I have written really juicy scenes based on other people's real reactions to this type of behavior, good or bad. For example, I went to London to do research for one of the stories, well, a few of the stories that I was doing. And I have this character who likes to exercise, she likes to go for a run, but she likes to do a warm-up first. The warm-up, it can be a bit embarrassing to do that in public, but to warm up at home and then take the subway over to the park, you're not warm anymore by the time you get there. So she decided, I'm not going to care what people think. I'm just going to do it in the park. And so while I was there, I thought I should do this warm up in the park just to see if it would even be a big deal. And as I started doing it, a group of children on like a field trip walked by and started pointing and laughing. And I couldn't do anything about it because I'm the character who doesn't care. I just kept going, and now guess what's going to happen in the scene?
Laughing.
Right, and I wouldn't have predicted that. I would have thought maybe a few looks, but now it's going to be a much more interesting scene having that experience and having the real life thing happen.
Very much so. I would have never, because how do you know? There's no way of knowing there's going to be children anywhere on a field trip in the first place. So that's amazing. Are you working on any current projects at the moment that you're allowed to talk about?
The ones that I'm allowed to talk about, I'm doing a fan film, like a fan series that is called DC by Night, and that's about some of the lesser focused on characters in the DC universe. But I get to play Catwoman, who is my absolute favorite character, and I have no problem doing that. And then I was just cast in a short film called Forever. That's one of those collaborations I was talking about. One of the people that I kind of only knew online, she's been trying to develop her craft as a filmmaker during the pandemic by just working with, maybe 2 actors at a time so that, there's not this widespread activity going on. And she's honing her skills, and I am happy to help her do that because she's a good writer, and I like working with good filmmakers. I like working with talented people who are committed to their craft. And then, let's see, what else am I allowed to talk about? There are a few things that haven't come out yet, but were finished last year. I think those are the only ones I'm allowed to say.
Okay.
I'm attached to 2 other projects, but I'm not allowed to announce those yet.
Not a problem. I'm excited. Hopefully you can let me know when they do come out. So one of everyone's favorite phrase this year was go back to normal. But prior to 2020, there was a lot of people complaining about everything, not just, work, complaining about not enough pay, complaining about the entertainment industry. They're not diverse enough. They do this, they do that. And it's like, well, why would you want to go back to that? So what would you like to see changed in the entertainment business, whether it's dance, music, acting, theater, film, television? What some things would you like to see different that are not going back to normal, but I would say going forward to abnormal?
So you're saying different from the way they were last year when the pandemic started?
Well, no, different from even before we knew there was a pandemic. Things that you didn't like about the entertainment business that you would like to see change.
Something that has shifted over the past year because of the pandemic is that people with power in the filmmaking industry have been making themselves more accessible to up and coming actors, directors, writers, and doing panels and workshops for free. I like that element of it. I like that they're, I'm not working right now, so let me help develop the next line of creatives that are coming out right now. And that allows networking between those individuals. So if you are working on something and you have a question about something, they're making themselves available to just ask a question. I would like to see more of that in the future where, we're not asking you to take our project. We're not asking you to take us under your wing and make us your next star. But it would be nice if you were just available for us to, it's not even so much a mentorship, it's just guide us toward success in little bits of time. That kind of thing shouldn't be something that's a burden on somebody, but it also shouldn't be that challenging to just make yourself available to answer questions every once in a while.
I think, prior to college, that's what the people did, apprenticeship. Young ones would get with those in expertise who had experience, and it was done for free. And I don't know when and why that changed, but I personally believe in every industry that needs to go back to people with knowledge before you pass that knowledge to someone else, because
Right. It's the
when you're
rule of
dead, you
thirds.
can't
So
use
you
it.
should spend a third of your time with someone who knows more than you, a third of your time with people who are at your level, and a third of your time mentoring those who haven't reached your level yet.
Right.
It should be a cycle so that we are always building, we're always elevating, but lifting others, that kind of thing.
All right. Yes, I like that. And my last question I have for you today. So we're going to pretend you have a fairy godmother. And
What makes you
so
think I don't?
so she's going to ask you to say a name, any name. And this is going to be a little bit difficult because usually when I do this, I give a person just one option. And so now you have multiple options. It could be an actress, it could be a writer, director, it could be a producer, it could be anyone in the entertainment business as far as theater or film or even television. And when you say this name, and they can either be dead or they can be alive, you're going to end up with them working on a project together. Who would that name be, and what kind of project would you work on?
That is so wide open, and I have so many names going through my mind. It's like, which one, which one? Are there actors that I would like to work with because I enjoy their craft? There's one particular actor I'd like to work with because I think he is perfect for a role that I wrote, and I just would like to bring that, that series to life. I mean, there's Shonda Rhimes. I would just love to just watch her work and see how she goes and see how she troubleshoots. Being a showrunner like her, that it's one of those things where I can't even envision myself reaching that level yet because she's just so amazing. That doesn't mean I wouldn't aim for it, but I'm not even at the point where I can see it as a possibility yet. I think it would be Shonda Rhimes, especially after seeing Bridgerton, which is a different genre than what she usually does, but she still brought that Shonda magic into it.
Awesome. I like that. And I'm curious, the guy you said the actor you wanted to work with.
Tom Hiddleston.
Okay.
I've seen his theatrical performances, and the subtlety in just an eye twitch or an almost cry. It's just amazing to see the nuance and emotion in his face. And I have a character that he would just play perfectly because this person, tiptoes the balance between good and evil. And I think that he would do that masterfully.
Keep finding bags full of money hidden all over our house. Where's it all coming from? What have you got us into?
Quit checking up on me, Sarah. You have no idea what this is making me do. No idea, Sarah. She don't know.
I'm warning you, Chris.
You lack faith.
Your disappearance has snatched color, shape, and texture from my life.
Others are more deserving.
Restore the gift.
I tried, but you neglected me, along with the purpose.
Am I to live with this pain? This is deserved. My future exists.
Only for the ones who believe.
You don't get it, do you? This is a mock trial. You screw this up and you don't get a seat at the table in court. You better come up with a brilliant closing argument. If you don't, you won't even have a seat at your desk.
So
Or
tell me
had
about
it.
your podcast.
So one of my big resolutions for last year, everyone had their list of resolutions that, last year kind of changed. But the one thing that I was determined to stick with was writing a weekly blog on improving intimacy with your partner. So every week I put out a tip on just something you could do that would improve intimacy in a committed relationship. And that was pretty challenging around June, where it was feeling like, why am I writing this blog about love when the world is falling apart? But without me even saying anything, without me making that a vocal question, people who read the blog were sending me emails and sending comments and little messages to me saying, thank you. I look forward to this because everything is so negative right now. I appreciate that you're writing about something that is positive. And so I ended up, I kept going. It was just that fuel. It's like, God sent this, you need to hear this right now. And I kept going, and I finished the blog the last week of the year, and everything has changed now. I have a literary agent who is helping me work to make that into a book. And I started the 52 Love podcast, which is going to be going through each of those tips, talking to someone who's in the industry, either an author or an actor or a filmmaker. I'm giving them, sharing the platform. They come on, they talk about the tip, and they get to promote themselves. And just seeing how different people utilize the different tips and how it works in their lives. And I don't know, it's just a fun thing. And I put out my first episode Monday, and I'm still very much in the honeymoon phase of it.
Yeah. So have you only recorded the one, or have you met with, you've done more than one podcast?
I've only
so far?
recorded the one, and I have
Okay.
2 scheduled for tomorrow.
right.
I'm going to get ahead of it. I've been advised to get ahead of it so that I'm not scrambling to record something each week.
Cool. That's good. That's amazing. Well, what was your experience like? Because there is, you can go online and learn how to do a podcast, but still podcasting is a experience type of thing. And so what was it like experiencing it and learning how to do it?
Well, my literary agent is someone who had a podcast, and she's like, hey, that's a great idea. And she gave me some tips. But last year, I did an interview with Mike Burton of Genuine Chit Chat, and we just really clicked. I've actually been on his show a few times, and he made time to he talked to me for at least an hour, giving me tips on what sites to use, what editing software I can choose, different routes that I could go, and, did that mentoring thing that we were talking about. He didn't have to spend his time doing that. He's busy with his own podcast and his own life, and he sat and just broke it down for me and even made the logo for my show.
Thank you for taking the time to watch another episode of The Show Must Go On. Today's guest, I'd like to thank you, Tonya Todd, for joining me, and to the audience for watching. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this episode. Thank you, and have a great day.